and welcome to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Heather. However, I'm known online better as either Chippy or definitely not Chippy if you follow me on TikTok. By the way, you should do that, and you should hit the subscribe button here. In the United States, sex education has become a bit of a hot button topic, and that's putting it lightly. I'm about to start a series where I go over the state of sex ed curriculum in each of the 50 states, but first I think it's important to talk about the United States as a whole, especially for those of you who might be watching this from another country. If you're looking at this from outside the United States, or you've just never thought about sex education curriculum before, there's an important fact that you should know up front. That fact is that the United States does not have a federal curriculum or any laws pertaining to such. Laws about sex ed are left up to each individual state, similarly to our gun laws. In many states, it can differ based on different school districts and different school boards even, so there really is no standard curriculum at all, and that creates a lot of problems. I don't want to get too into politics on this channel, but I will say that in the United States right now, there's a war of morals going on, and sex ed is a huge part of that war. A lot of schools have been inundated with political extremists trying to get everybody's kids to learn the same way they want their kids to learn, even if it goes against better judgment for the kid's future. Now let's get on to the meat and potatoes of this topic, the actual policies. I have a bunch of notes on this, so please forgive me for reading. It is a lot to remember. And for anybody who might be interested in reading these facts themselves, I will list my sources in the description. Out of the 50 United States, 38 states and the District of Columbia mandate sex education and/or HIV education. Of those states, 25 states and DC mandate both sex education and HIV education. 25. That's half. 3 states only mandate sex education, and 10 states only mandate HIV education. I know that's a lot to take in, but what we're basically saying is a majority of states do have some sort of law or policy on sex education, but as you heard, only half of them mandate both sex ed and HIV education, and 10 only talk about HIV. Moving on, 30 states out of those 38 and DC mandate that when provided, sex education and HIV education programs meet certain general requirements. This one is I don't want to call it a fun fact because it's really not fun. Only 18 states require their programs to be medically accurate. 18. To me, as a person that values sources and statistics and science, that is mind-blowing. 18 states. 26 states and DC require instruction to be appropriate for the student's age. I feel like that's something everybody can get on board with. Only 10 states require the program to provide instruction that is appropriate for a student's cultural background and is not biased against any race, sex, or ethnicity. So only 10 states say, hey, if you're going to teach about sex ed, you can't be biased against certain groups. That's kind of fucked. 4 states prohibit the program from promoting religion. 40 states and DC require school districts to involve parents in sex education, HIV education, or both. In my eyes, this is fine. I think parents should be involved in their child's sex education. School and parents should work together to make sure that kids know everything that they need to know to be productive, successful, healthy adults. However, there is an issue that arises when certain parents want to basically stop all students from learning about sex education because they don't want their son or daughter or non-binary child to learn about this stuff. I think if you want to opt your child out, for example, like we have the option to do in New Jersey, that's fine. But don't opt out everyone's child. 25 states and DC require parental notification that sex ed or HIV education will be provided. 6 states require parental consent for students to participate in sex ed or HIV education. As I said, New Jersey, where I live, is one of those states. 35 states and DC allow parents the option to remove their child from instruction. Here's another fact that kind of makes you go, what? Only 20 states and DC require that information be provided on contraception. What the hell are we doing in sex ed if we're not talking about contraception? That is one of the main points that you can get across in a sex ed class. That is one of the top ways to be a healthy, sexually active adult. 39 states and DC require that information be provided on abstinence. This is where we get the abstinence-only education that you may have heard of. Abstinence-only education, in my opinion and the opinion of many sex education professionals, is just not realistic. It's a bit like being an ostrich and burying your head in the sand. Whether we like to admit it or not, teenagers are going to have sex. It's a fact of life. We did it when I was a kid. My grandparents did it when they were kids. And if we pretend that they're not going to do that before marriage, and we don't provide them with ways to become sexually active, healthy adults and teenagers, that's putting them at risk. Anyway, we'll talk about that later on in the video. 29 states require that abstinence be stressed, and 10 states and DC require that it be covered. 19 states require instruction on the importance of engaging in sexual activity only within marriage. Again, hearkening back to the abstinence stuff we just talked about. 14 states and DC require either an inclusive or discriminatory view of sexual education. Let me break that down for you. Only 10 states out of 50 and DC require inclusive content with regard to sexual orientation. So, only 10 states within our beautiful union require that we don't make kids feel odd or weird or strange by including their sexuality. Because whether or not people like to admit it, kids who are gay or lesbians or bi or trans or what have you usually know by the time that they hit puberty. 4 states, and I can't believe I am about to say this right now because this sounds like an unbelievable fact and I am well aware of that. As I said, the sources to this will be in the description below. Hold on to your seats. 4 states require only negative information to be provided on homosexuality and or positive emphasis on heterosexuality. 1 state prohibits instruction on gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation in 2024. 17 states and DC require provision of information about skills for healthy, romantic, and sexual relationships. Again, let me break this part down for you. 31 states and DC require information on healthy relationships to be provided. Now, what does that look like? What does that mean? It just points out that you shouldn't be coerced, you should know what consent is, you shouldn't get beat in your relationship, things like that. 27 states and DC require instruction on self-control and decision-making about sexuality. 40 states and DC require prevention of teen dating violence and sexual violence to be covered. Again, I think that's a great thing, and it's the vast majority of states. So, good job on that. 24 states and DC require provision of information on asserting personal boundaries and refusing unwanted sexual advances. Now, that number could be higher. 24 is not great. That's less than half. But I'm happy that at least some states are covering that. 10 states require the importance of consent to sexual activity to be covered. Only 10 states cover consent. Yeah. 38 states and DC require information to be given on preventing, recognizing, and responding to teen dating violence and sexual violence. Again, 38 is a great number. Moving on. In 2016, the median share of schools in each state that provided instruction on all 19 topics that the CDC considers essential to sexual health education was 38%. That's like, I can't even consider that an F. That's like worse than an F. Is there worse than an F? I guess not. It's an F if we're grading it. But my God, 38% of high schools and only 14% of middle schools. When kids are hitting puberty and they're going haywire and wondering what about their body and hey, why do I get a boner every morning? Like, this is when we need to be telling, well, actually, to correct myself, we should be telling people before they hit that what to expect. The share of schools providing sexual health education declined between 2000 and 2014 across many topics. I think I might need blood pressure medication after this video. As of 2017, fewer than 7% of queer students aged 13 to 21 reported that their school health class had inclusive and positive representations of LGBT-related topics. Imagine being a 13-year-old girl or boy or non-binary person and sitting in class, especially in one of those classes that I said before makes homosexuality a bad thing and makes it clear that those people are sinners and going to hell. Imagine sitting there as a gay student with all of your classmates getting riled up around you to hate the person that you are. I know that's hard for people to imagine sometimes, but I would like you to sincerely try to put yourself in that position. How would you feel as a middle schooler, where it's already hard to fit in? Let me be clear, I have 2 middle school boys. They suffer all the time from friend drama and all of this other crap. They're all going through puberty, their brain is a mess, their body's a mess, and then on top of it, to be sitting in class and have students around you and yourself be told that you are what's wrong with the world. No wonder the suicide rate for these kids is so high. Anyway, parents are another possible source of health information for young people. In 2011 to 2013, 70% of males and 78% of females aged 15 to 19 reported having talked to their parent about at least one of 6 sex ed topics. Those topics were how to say no to sex, methods of birth control, STIs. Side note, I don't know if you guys got the same talks that we did in school about STIs, but like, they drilled it into our heads that the second you have sex, you're getting gonorrhea. Anyway, where to get birth control, how to prevent HIV infection, and how to use a condom. Now that you guys know the policies in the United States about sex education, let's move on to the realities and statistics of what teens are actually experiencing. Again, to no one's surprise, I have notes. From 2015 to 2017, 40% of adolescents aged 15 to 19 reported having had, that's so hard to say, having had penile vaginal intercourse, commonly referred to as sexual intercourse. 45% had had oral sex with a different sex partner, and 9% reported having had anal sex with a different sex partner. Again, this does not account for gay children, but 40%, 15 to 19-year-olds, 40% of them are having sex. 45% of them are having oral sex, and 9% are even doing it in the butt. However, when it comes to the narrower population of just high school students, the number is actually on the decline. From 2013 to 2017, in fact, it went from 47% to 40%, which was reflected in the stat that I just gave you. The proportion of young people who have had sexual intercourse increases rapidly as they age through adolescence, though. In 2013, about 1 in 5 15-year-olds and 2/3 of 18-year-olds reported having had sex. Among adolescents aged 15 to 19 from 2015 to 2017 who had penile vaginal sex, 75% of females and 48% of males reported that their first intercourse was with a steady partner. As of 2015 to 2017, again, these are the most current stats, by the way. I did look for more current stats, but this is what we have. As of 2015 to 2017, young people aged 18 to 24 who had penile vaginal sex, 71% of men described their first sexual experience as wanted, as opposed to unwanted, which was 4%. Or that they had mixed feelings about it, which was 25%. 1/2 of young women said that they had mixed feelings about their first sexual experience, whether it was wanted or not, while 45% said that their first sexual encounter was wanted and 4% said it was unwanted. Now, these statistics harken back to when we talked about the whole consent thing and how few states are teaching it. There are kids out there that are having sex that don't know how to say no to it, or don't know about consent, don't know that they have a say in it. There are kids out there who are forcing themselves upon their partners without even realizing that they're doing it because they have no idea how consent actually works and that it can be revoked at any time. Most adolescents use contraceptives at both first sex and their most recent time having sex. In 2015 to 2017, 89% of females and 94% of males aged 15 to 19 reported that they or their partner had used contraceptives the last time that they had sexual intercourse. And 77% of females and 91% of males reported contraceptive use for the first time they had sexual intercourse, which is great. Those are pretty good numbers, all things considered. The condom is the contraceptive that is most often used among adolescents, probably because it's the easiest to get their hands on. In 2015 to 2017, words are hard, especially when you're reading numbers. In 2015 to 2017, 63% of females and 82% of males aged 15 to 19 reporting having used a condom for the first time that they had sexual intercourse. Older adolescents are more likely to use prescription methods of contraception, and condom use becomes less common with age. As I said, it's a lot easier to get your hands on a condom as a teenager than it is to get birth control prescribed to you. Now, there are some states where it is a lot easier. For instance, I know that a bunch of states you can just walk into a Planned Parenthood. You do not need parental consent to get a contraceptive. However, there are states that have passed laws that have made that illegal. Adolescents aged 14 or younger at first sex are less likely than older adolescents to use contraceptives. Again, we can assume that's because the younger adolescents either don't have access to it, are embarrassed to ask for access to it, or just haven't had sex ed yet. In fact, my source goes on to say, adolescents' non-use of contraceptives may be driven by many factors, including lack of access, the need for confidential care and low-cost services, a belief that they are unlikely to get pregnant, and poor partner negotiation skills. In addition, some adolescents may not be using contraceptives because they want to become pregnant. Crazy, I know, but there are some kids out there that think babies are neat, babies are cool, they're cute. They don't think through the actual repercussions of having a baby, which is another thing that should be covered in sex ed classes. Many healthcare providers do not talk with their adolescent patients about sexual health issues during primary care visits. When conversations do occur, they're brief. In one study of visits in 2019 to 2012, sexual health conversations with patients aged 12 to 17 lasted an average of 36 seconds. I don't know if you remember being that age and going to the doctor, but it usually consisted, for me at least, of when was the last time you got your period? Are you sexually active? And if I said yes, are you using protection? That was it. Despite guidance Recognizing young men's need for sexual and reproductive health services in recent years, many gaps remain. In a 2018 study of male patients aged 15 to 24, only 1 in 10 received all of the recommended sexual and reproductive health services for their age. 1 in 10. That is awful. Now, when we think about young queer folks, they have a whole nother issue going on. They need access to queer-focused healthcare. Providers that know what it's like to be LGBTQIA+, or have a family member, or at least have learned about it. And that isn't happening a lot of the time. So as you've heard from those statistics, whether we want to admit it or not, teens are having sex. Sorry if the camera angle looks different. I just found out that my phone stopped recording halfway through this. So let's do this again. Now let's take a look at the stats for STDs in the United States for teens. More notes. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, aka the CDC, report that young people aged 15 to 24 account for half of the 20 million new STI cases per year in the United States. Half. Young people aged 13 to 24 accounted for about 21% of all new HIV cases. 21%. Young Black and Hispanic, gay, bisexual, or other men who have sex with men are disproportionately affected. If you pay attention to any of this kind of stuff, you would know that Black and brown people in our country are underserved when it comes to things like Planned Parenthood, other clinics, information, good education, good schools, things like that, and that affects this number greatly for them. Chlamydia accounts for nearly 20% of all STI diagnoses each year among 15 to 24-year-olds. Genital herpes, gonorrhea, and trich together account for 11%. HIV, syphilis, and hepatitis B are estimated to be fewer than 1%. 2/3 of STI diagnosed among 15 to 24-year-olds each year are HPV infections. Now, it is incredibly important for me to mention the fact that we have vaccines against HPV. For those of you who might not know, HPV can generally be harmless as long as you treat it, but if it goes untreated, it can lead to things like cervical cancer and other cancers, so it's a pretty big deal. As of 2022, 78% of female teenagers had received at least one dose of HPV vaccination. I really can't talk today, huh? Compared to 74% of male teens. Only 60.6% of males and 64.6% of females are up to date on these preventative measures. What does that mean? You're supposed to get 3 or more doses of the Gardasil vaccine. So from what we see here, only slightly more than half are actually keeping up with those vaccinations. Now that we've talked about STDs, let's talk about teen pregnancy. Now, credit where credit is due. This is the one place where the United States is improving. However, one caveat, the entire world is improving in this. The provisional birth rates for teenagers aged 15 to 17 and 18 to 19 in 2022 were 5.5 and 25.6 births per 1,000 females. That is down by 2% and 4% respectively from 2021. These are both record low numbers in the United States, so from 2007 to 2021, the rates for teenagers aged 15 to 17 and 18 to 19 declined by 9% and 7% per year, respectively. Now, let's put this in a global perspective. In the Netherlands, which has one of the best comprehensive sex education programs in the entire world, the teen birth rate for girls in that same age group is 2.2 per 1,000, compared to our 5.5 and 25.6. Now, I know I've just said that we were improving, but clearly things can be better. The overall rate in the EU, so all of the European Union, is 8.8 per 1,000. The provisional birth rate for females aged 10 to 14 years, so incredibly young, was 0.2 births per 1,000 in 2022, which has not changed since 2015, by the way. Now, that is an incredibly low number. I think we're doing great there. Of course, we would love for that to be 0, but being realistic, I don't think we're ever going to hit 0. I don't think any country will hit 0, unfortunately. But still, that's a good number. The provisional birth rate for women aged 20 to 24 in 2022 was 60.4 births per 1,000 women, down 2% from 2021. Back then, it was 61.5 per 1,000. This is yet another record. As a side note, I fall into that age group. When I had my kids, I was 24 years old, so I would have been one of those birthing women. This rate in the 20 to 24-year-old group has declined by 43% since 2007. The number of births to women in their early 20s has declined by 2% from 2021 to 2022. So, let's sum it up. Teens are not learning what they need to be learning. Teens are also having sex. They're getting STIs. Fewer of them are getting pregnant, however. So, what can we take away from all of this information? The main point of me telling you all of these facts is that when we don't teach our kids about having safe sex and all of the intricacies of their own bodies, we are doing them a disservice. In fact, sometimes we're putting them at severe risk. Just take the HIV statistics as an example. I know that was a lot of information to digest in one video. As I said, the sources will be in the description if you would like to peruse them at your own leisure. But I thank you for sticking around because this is a really important topic. Next time you guys come back, we're going to talk about comprehensive sex education, because that seems to be a word that gets thrown around as a buzzword nowadays, and I don't think a lot of people actually know what it entails. In fact, I've had members of my own family sit down at a table at Thanksgiving and tell me that kindergartners are learning about anal, there are litter boxes in all of the schools, and people are being encouraged to turn gay by their teachers. None of that is happening, and next time I'll tell you why. Also, if you would like to see what your specific state's policies are, I highly encourage you to hit the subscribe button and the bell, because I will be making this into a series where I cover each individual state's policies. So if that's something you're interested in, you know what to do. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments. Did you have sex education in school, and what grade did it start in? For me personally, I think the first time I had any type of sex education was in 5th grade, when they separated us into boys and girls and told us about our period. And then we all carried around backpacks with tampons in them because we were all scared we were gonna get it like at school. My first real sex education class was in 7th grade, when it was kind of starting to get too late for some people. So anyway, thank you for watching, thank you for being here, and I will see you next time.